Welcome to Krassensteins. Today we have a very special guest with us today, Rebekah Jones. How's it going, Rebekah?
It's going great. It's nice to see you guys after the Twitter debacle with Spaces.
Yeah, we tried a Twitter space. It didn't work out, but we're doing a video instead. Some of you might recognize Rebekah um, because not only did she run against Republican Matt Gaetz in the last election, but she also made headlines as a whistleblower. Rebekah managed the team that created the Florida Department of Health's COVID-19 dashboard. And you claim that you were fired from your position in May 2020 due to your refusal to misrepresent COVID-19 data here in Florida. We all live in Florida, love the state, don't like the politics. But this actually led Forbes to title you the 2020 Tech Person of the Year. Not only that, but according to the Daily Beast, you are DeSantis's worst nightmare. We'll get more into all of that in a bit. But first, I think there may be a bigger story here involving Matt Gaetz. So over the course of the last week or so, you've been tweeting out quite a flurry of salacious allegations against your former opponent, Matt Gaetz, of course. You've suggested that Gaetz's office is an upheaval over an expected FBI raid any day now. You also tweeted about his sex trafficking allegations and an alleged affair between Gaetz and his male press secretary. So what can you tell us all about that?
So I started speaking with people in Gaetz's campaign last year. There are good people in his campaign that are more ground folks here. Because we're such an area, we have the highest concentration of veterans per capita of any congressional district in the country. There are a lot of veterans advocates that I've gotten to know really well. People who are advocating for all kinds of causes, that environmental issues, there's a lot of those people, because in Florida, even if you're a Republican, you have to be somewhat of an environmentalist. And those are a group of causes that I care quite a bit about. And so I've made inroads in a lot of those communities, and people met me and they know him, and it's not surprising which one they decided to trust. But especially since the whole debacle with the speakership confirmation, in which Matt Gaetz at least has positioned himself to seem like he was the person holding the line to not get McCarthy speakership, even though he voted president a few times. After that, a lot of Republican operatives have basically said, I've had enough dealing with this little asshole. Here's everything I know. And, that wasn't by accident. I made the all call. I was banned from Twitter for a year and a half for, according to Twitter, oversharing a Miami Herald article that said my entire whistleblower complaint was true and accurate, as according to DOH itself. And
so you're banned just like us. So we share that
but they didn't
commonality.
accuse me. Twitter didn't accuse me of buying followers, but Christina Pushaw, DeSantis's press secretary, did. Lo and behold, in April of last year, DeSantis bought 100,000 accounts from a bot farm in a period of 2 days. So these people are all projection. But according to Twitter spokespeople, I was suspended for oversharing a Miami Herald news article.
Wait. I thought they only banned conservatives. No?
Oh, I know, right? First of all, Democrats are shit with messaging. There are so many opportunities to counter these narratives that conservatives are not only putting out there, but completely siloing off as their issues, when there's people like you guys and me who are liberals who were wrongly suspended or had, government overreach involved in their lives, especially in my part, and some of what you guys went through as well, that they don't exploit. I mean, I was exploited to hell and back when the raid happened, and they raised millions of dollars off of the tragedy my family went through. And, so it's not like they don't know they can do it. They don't have any central messaging or vision. At any rate, as soon as I got my account back with my 300 and some thousand followers, I started making the all calls. I was like, I will protect you as a source. I will never name you. I will not say shit if you come out publicly and deny the fact that you gave me these things. I will let you do that day and night as long as I get the dirt, because that's more important. So I started getting photographs, which to me I'm more careful about, because I feel like if you put something out there that's photoshopped, that's it. you're done. Like if
Yeah.
I can't independently verify, I don't have those technical skills, whether or not a photograph is authentic. Information I can check out. So, and then I started getting really juicy stories from people inside of Matt Gaetz's congressional office. And for everyone who keeps asking, I'm not going to tell you who that is. I'm not going to out my sources in Matt Gaetz's office to the internet. That kind of defeats the entire purpose. And these people have jobs, they have lives, they have families that they want to keep. They're just trying to do the right thing. The first question I asked 3 people specifically, obviously would have been, is it true? Are the sex trafficking allegations true? Or do you have any knowledge firsthand that would say that it's true? All 3 of them, oh yeah, it's true. It's absolutely true. And it's way worse than people think. It's not just a girl one time in, through Venmo with Joel Greenberg, and she might have been 18, she might have been 17. It's way worse than just that. And so I checked that out across different sources, people who aren't all talking to each other at the same time, obviously. And one of them had told me that they're afraid that any day now that the FBI is going to raid their offices and take all their phones and see everything that's on their phones.
Oh, wow.
And this is probably like my most reliable source, somebody I personally know. And there's a lot of other kind of things that I'm still trying to vet through secondary sources that I can't quite say yet. But the affair was the thing that kind of it made sense to me. So after the debate last year, Matt Gaetz did horrible. He did so bad that he actually asked the television station to pull the video from YouTube. Every previous debate that they've ever done is on YouTube, except for the one between me and Matt Gaetz. It was up there for a little while and they pulled it down. His press secretary was there in the lobby with the camera crew. There's 2 different cameramen who were making a documentary about me. Was huffing and puffing the whole time, kept yelling at the nice little old lady who works for the League of Women Voters, who picked the questions about how bullshit the questions were. Was very flustered at one point, says, it doesn't matter anyway. We're going to win. We're going to win. It doesn't matter. That he did that bad. But as soon as it was over, he like stormed out. Like a little more polite. I didn't just take my mic off and just like throw it. I was like, oh, here, it's nice to meet you. Thank you for having us, blah, blah, blah. But I went to the restroom and he had already been there for a minute because he left before me. And I kind of saw them. I thought maybe he was fixing his hair because everybody knows Matt Gaetz is obsessed with his hair.
Well, that's
And he
apparent,
had his
right?
hands like kind of like this on him. I was like, that's kind of weird. Whatever, I don't care. I didn't know who the dude was. But it looked very intimate and kind of comforting. And I was like, whatever. This is none of my business. I don't care what consenting adults do, in their own privacy. I didn't realize he was a Matt Gaetz employee at that time, or that he worked in his congressional office. But as soon as I heard, from 2 different people in the office about the affair, I was like, that's the guy. I saw his picture and I was like, that was the guy who was there that night. That makes so much sense now. There are supposedly pictures of Matt Gaetz with young men. How young is I don't know how we're going to determine that. Obviously, we're not going to publish them if they're
Will these
minors.
pictures ever be released, you think?
I hope so. I mean, I think one of the things I was trying to do was try to look up on Facebook and see if I could find who these guys were. That way I could at least check to see that they're, of age, because if they're not, that might be something a whole other thing I have to deal with. But at a minimum, we're going to blur them out. We're not looking to out anybody.
Yeah.
Well,
and who
yeah,
cares if he's having an affair with another guy? But it's a hypocrisy that the whole
there's a couple of
hypocrisy of the
lines of
Republican
hypocrisy
Party.
there. One is that it's his employee. It's a member of his staff.
Yeah, that's
the second is that, yes, there's a lot of hypocrisy there. Now, Matt Gaetz did not used to be really huge on the anti-gay stuff. His sister, I believe, is an out lesbian. At least that's what I've heard, is that she's gay. She doesn't hide it. But Matt Gaetz has been known to be in relationships openly with adult men. He dated a preacher in Pensacola openly for a long time. Nobody really cares. I don't care. I mean, I'm bisexual, so I don't really give a shit what consenting adults do. But there is the issue of it being a member of his staff, and the fact that now he's jumped on Groomergate. He's one of these people who accuses gay teachers of trying to groom children.
Yeah.
While there's still an active ongoing investigation into sex trafficking for him, which is just, it's disgusting and vile. That was apparently one of the other things that I had to correct a lot of people on. At no point has the Department of Justice made the conclusion that they're declining to prosecute. That investigation is still ongoing. That story was planted by former Politico blogger Mark Caputo, who, if you look up his writing history, you'll see there's a lot of speculative positive press stunts for DeSantis and Gaetz. He's very
Yeah,
connected
and
to
the right kind of
DeSantis
just
stuff.
ran with that, like as he's
Yes, they
free,
did.
he didn't do anything, and but that doesn't
Exactly.
seem
It
to
was
be the
planted
case.
for that purpose. He got it redone in Washington Post by a different reporter so he could have it a step removed, but it used, if you read the articles, the same sources. Anonymous former federal prosecutors are saying that they would decline to prosecute, which is not anything remotely close to the Department of Justice or the FBI saying we're not prosecuting. All indications, including a statement put out by them themselves, say that the investigation is ongoing. There was the whole basis of that article was that the victim might have an axe to grind with the man who victimized her. Imagine that. I guess no rape, cases should ever be prosecuted because the victim might be angry that they were raped.
Yeah, right.
And that his accomplice was not credible. Joel Greenberg's testimony has led to the arrest of, I think, almost a dozen people already. So his credibility was not an issue when it came to bringing down all the people involved with the ghost candidate scheme or with fraudulent real estate deals or any of the number of other things. His lawyer has said specifically they've turned over enough evidence for 7 different individuals who are in Florida politics, did not specify just Republicans,
Wow.
to be prosecuted for sex trafficking and sex crimes. Matt Gaetz is assumably one of those people. But yeah, it's the whole information web thing is just a tangling of understanding that probably all, let's be fair, of my sources have their own agendas. That the information has to be carried very delicately and verified by people who aren't in the same clique within his office, because that's just an echo chamber. If I check with one and they all know each other and they've all said this one thing, then it's a little strange if that's the only source. So I always go with somebody who doesn't like me.
Now, was this
And
information coming out? Was this information coming out during the whole Gates versus McCarthy thing that was going on in the House of Representatives, or was it before or after that?
some of it was before. I started getting really good stuff in like November, which, was great timing and everything. But I think it really was a understanding or even just a nod of, okay, you can do what you want now with them. That some of that information came through. I mean, it feels kind of like they're, Madison Cawthorning him, who, by the way, just moved to Florida and is hanging out with Christina Pushaw.
Really? I didn't know that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Christine Pushaw, of course, works for the DeSantis campaign. That's that other story where DeSantis was allegedly buying bot farms or using bot farms to amplify his reach on social media, and also was paying or giving incentives in some way to multiple Republican social media influencers to help him boost his posts, if I'm correct. And you have
Yes.
been warning us all about this for months. And the Daily Beast, of course, had that article yesterday, and it's been making its rounds. Did you
Yeah,
talk to the Daily Beast at all? Did they get any information
I
from
did
you?
not. I feel like they kind of barely got onto the tip of the iceberg. Now they found out things that I would not have been able to find out on my own, like about the parties and the, incentives and all that stuff. That's a world I'm not a part of. Politics in general. But there's so much more to it than what was covered there. I've actually reached out to a couple of different reporters who do more investigative work to be like, this is a good start. Now the information's out there and you have a launch pad to use this giant folder that I recently sent to the FBI of all this documentation, fire hose data from Twitter, which, by the way, is not cheap to get. And
you're a data expert, so
yes. And so I've gone through it. And I mean, I first was introduced to this woman about 2 years ago. And she got so psychotic, I had to get a restraining order. So I got an emergency one approved, and then 2 different judges extended temporary ones until we had the final hearing, in which the argument was basically made that, well, she's a blogger and you're a public figure, so no, we're not going to make it permanent.
And this was Christine, right?
This is Christina Pushaw.
Okay.
And so for a month while the restraining order was still active, she violated it repeatedly. She told people to make false police reports against me, to harass my pretrial diversion person, as kind of like a parole person, but not quite, because that case was dismissed. Um, and I had to talk to him. That was a whole thing. I was like, hey, sorry about all these calls you're getting from these crazy random people on the internet. He was like, yeah, I figured with you that would happen. I was like, sorry, I don't know what to tell you. So she was criminally charged with violating the restraining order, I think in June of 2021, which is about the same time that she got hired as DeSantis' secretary.
Wow.
She is one of the early adopters of the whole groomer slur used at LGBT people and people who are allies of LGBT people. I've traced it back actually somewhat further before her, but when she grabbed it, it really became kind of an explosive thing. And so I believe there were several articles that attributed the whole groomer attack line to her specifically, investigative pieces. They missed a couple of things, but nothing big. She certainly popularized it. She's got some, what did DeSantis say about me? She's got issues. And she's deeply connected to Eastern European politics. That's where she was before she harassed me and before she got a job with DeSantis. And so,
Well, she
it
was
looks like,
she was didn't she get in trouble for not being not registering as a foreign agent?
yes, she did. So she's had 3 jobs in her entire life, and we're the same age. And the first one was working disinformation and propaganda for Mikhail Saakashvili, who's the former, now exiled, imprisoned president of Georgia. He was stripped of his citizenship because of he's a Christian nationalist socialist who's psychotic. So she worked there for a long time, which is where she met Michael Caputo, who of course ran Boris Yeltsin, the previous president of Russia's political campaign, twice, and then did PR directly under Vladimir Putin starting in around the year 2000 when he became president. So she teamed up with them and got deeply embedded into that whole Russo lifestyle, and came to work for DeSantis after that little gap of attacking me, which
So is
she
she
claimed she
still
didn't get paid to do that, and she did it totally of her own free will, whatever.
is she still
But
a registered agent of Georgia
she
as she's
should have
working
been.
for DeSantis
She should
or
have
for his
been.
campaign?
So I was informed in February of last year that she was under investigation by the Department of Justice for not registering as a foreign agent. I had to sit on it for months. It killed me, but my source was like, if you tell anybody this, I will never tell you anything again. And this guy's great, so I didn't want to burn him. And then I think it was May or June, it finally came out that they were investigating her. And so she belatedly registered as a foreign agent for Eastern European interests. She is still a registered foreign agent, but during her time, she was working for the state of Florida, a public employee being paid by public tax dollars, working for the governor of the 3rd largest state in the country as a unregistered foreign agent.
That's
Now
insane.
she's working for him as a registered foreign agent, but as soon as the news broke about the investigation, they kicked her out of the state government because there's all kinds of legal potential consequences for having a foreign agent on the payroll. And so now she works for his campaign.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so the campaign's
and
not the
managing.
campaign's not the government, so technically she's allowed to work for a campaign. Even though she's
Yes,
working for a foreign nation, that could be considered an adversary in some ways.
very much so. This guy is a war criminal and is deeply connected to Putin and Yeltsin and Caputo and all these other very terrible people. You know, I used to think that Michael Caputo was some kind of like mastermind because of the way that he was connected to all these different people. But then he attacked me on Twitter with some of the lamest shit I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, okay, cross him off the possible like mastermind list because he's a dumbass.
Yeah, I've
It,
seen
So,
some
I
pretty
mean,
stupid tweets from him too.
yeah,
it's
he's not
funny.
right.
It's funny because we were attacked after our banning. People said that we ran bot farms, and we had nothing to do with bot farms. But meanwhile, Ron DeSantis's campaign, run by this woman with ties to Georgia and Vladimir Putin indirectly, is actually helping DeSantis use bot farms to his advantage. And
But this
you
isn't
don't hear anything
totally
about
new.
that.
I mean, Jim Stewartson, and there's a couple of other people. Jim Stewartson, of course, you know, investigated QAnon, traced it back to Joseph and Michael Flynn, which is kind of where HBO was going with it, but not quite saying, but yeah, it's them. And they connected Pushaw to Turkish bot farms a year ago. I've been writing about this for almost 2 years now. I think it was in April of 21 that I first wrote unmasking the culprits of disinformation and how I figured out who she was and what she was doing and all these different accounts that she was connected to. There were some flaws in the article that we've referenced, in that they say Max Nordau is an anonymous account. He's not. His name is Andrew McGimsey. He lives in Kokomo, Indiana. His father is a genius computer programmer, and he's living in his basement, and he's been arrested for public drunkenness, DUI, a whole bunch of crazy stuff. He's just like some incel basement dweller, but that is the most influential person that they have, and he's got like 30,000 followers. So that's about the reach. But the bot farm thing, both their utilization of these basically Twitter armies that people have, hundreds of accounts that they just switch back and forth between to amplify or make a message seem like, well, all these independent accounts are tweeting about these things, so they must be true. It wasn't just to amplify him. He did specifically gain 100,000 bot account followers in a 2-day period in April. Chris Boozy of Bot Sentinel has a whole report, including all of the accounts documented on his website that you can check out. That's amplification, but it was also to silent dissent. So I'm hardly the only person that they go after. And I've been seeing more of that lately. Dr. Peter Hotez is a Nobel Prize nominated medical researcher who's the head of pediatric and tropical medicine at the University of Houston, or Texas at Houston. One of the nicest guy you'll ever meet. He's got the doctor with the big horn rim glasses and the bow tie, who's always on the news trying to help people. They have viciously gone after him. DeSantis has gone after him by name, as has Pushaw many times, partly because of his friendship with me. So yeah, it's calculated, it's methodical, it's aggressive, and it serves its purpose to an extent. Now, since this is bizarre, since Twitter's been taken over by Elon Musk, he's disconnected third-party applications that make switching between all those accounts difficult. So you'll see fewer accounts with the same messaging. And a couple weeks ago, may have even been December, one of those people, probably one of the same sources that talked to the Daily Beast, leaked to me the folder that, or granted me access to, rather, the folder that they used for me. They had a folder for every period of my life, my master's degree, my bachelor's degree, my PhD, my jobs in Louisiana, my job in Florida, the arrest related to the raid. Yeah, and they had a 30-page instruction manual on exactly what to tell people to convince them that I'm some kind of fraud, even though every investigation into my whistleblower complaint has said, yeah, it's true, but tough shit. And so they had specific responses logged if a person in the profile picture appeared to be Black, if the profile person's name or picture appeared to be male versus female, different types of psychological warfare, essentially, links to alt-right media like Breitbart, the National Review, Mark Caputo,
of course,
was the most frequently cited person in that stuff, even though he's been disciplined by NBC twice for stalking me. But he still has a job because that's the world. So yeah, it's insane. It's quite insane. And
like just looking at my own Twitter feed and reading some of the replies, it's like you can tell that these aren't actual people. You can go to their account, you can see what else they're posting. Most of them have the same storyline as like 10 other accounts. They're retweeting each other.
Or they might be actual people, but they're trained to say a certain thing, or they're that certain narrative that they have to keep alive in a response to kind of paint this picture of different individuals.
These bots aren't actually like bots. They're actual people that are trained to reply, as far as I'm aware, right?
Yeah, for the attack campaigns, yes. Now they do just buy straight empty accounts to follow people, like they did with DeSantis, to kind of make him trending at a time where they wanted him to trend. But the attack accounts, yes. And they're given instructions on what exactly to do and say. According to the Daily Beast article, Christina Pushaw just hangs out with these people and just tells them what to do. They're like, okay, today we're going to do this, this, and this. Our message is this, get it across the internet, get it trending. And it's effective because of the volume of accounts that they manage and control.
Here's a problem I have. Here's a problem I have. We know that Elon Musk is a DeSantis fan, right? Like he has kind of sided with DeSantis over Trump, I think, on a lot of different issues. Like
he seems to be not sure. He goes back and forth. He's definitely like I think was at one point a pro-Trumper, but he's kind of lukewarm on DeSantis. I feel like those two people are too big of narcissists to possibly ever get along.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, he is definitely towards that autocratic, very extreme far right.
So I wonder if he would, even if he knew that the DeSantis campaign was doing these fishy things, if he would even take action against them.
Well, under previous leadership, they didn't. They knew. We told them. I was not like I said, I wasn't the only person that they did this to. Peter Hotez has been, people are threatening to hang him all the time on Twitter, and none of those accounts are ever suspended or banned. And again, you can do whatever you want with me because I had sex with a classmate, in college. But that man is beyond, he's impeachable. And the kinds of vitriol that is targeted at him is sick. But yeah, they do it to a lot of people, and they've been told and they've been made aware. Jack Dorsey's leadership didn't do anything about it, so I wouldn't expect Elon to. But apparently now it's okay if you buy 100,000 followers and you just assign them to your account. Because if DeSantis can do it, then, unless we're doing, rules for thee, but not for me type mantra, which the right loves. So we'll see. So he'll just probably claim, oh, well, I didn't know these were happening. And somebody else must have just paid for hundreds of thousands of followers for me over like a year period. And I have nothing to do with it.
Nobody has any reason of doing that. It's just crazy.
So before I jump to a final topic, is there going to be more information about Gaetz coming? Do you think you're going to have more information anytime in the next few weeks?
Oh, I do.
Okay.
So... I'm hoping to really move on some of these pictures next week. And there's one piece of information. I've got to figure out another way to verify it. But I want to break soon. So apparently nobody knew about the restraining order that I tried to get against this GOP operative here who followed my son, who took pictures of him when he was alone, followed him into a bathroom at a different event, called the police on him. And the judge basically said a ruling saying, this is fucked up. He called it propaganda. And but because I was a political figure, as long as it was framed in the context of political speech, he could mock my son for being autistic on Facebook all that he wanted. Nobody covered that story. And so I just assumed nobody cared, but I've recently shared it. And apparently people do care. And so he just hired him as a full-time employee. Matt Gaetz did, to his congressional office. He's not a United States citizen, and he's a known child predator, and he just hired him recently full-time to his office.
Yeah, and that's in your Twitter feed. You posted that, I think it was 2 days ago or yesterday.
Yeah.
What is your Twitter handle, by the way, for those who want to follow you?
It's Rebekah. As the anti-Semitic people will routinely point out for you, it is spelled the biblical way, as in Genesis. So Gorebekah. I'm not Jewish, not that there's anything wrong with that. But I get attacked all the time with these anti-Semitic things. I'm like, what are y'all doing? It's like, did you not even make it through Genesis, for fuck's sakes? It's like, my siblings' names are Rachel and Gabriel Bryan. Come on.
Try having Steen at the end of your last name. Try having Steen or Stein at the end of your last name.
It shouldn't matter, but at the same time, it's kind of like the Michael Caputo lame attack. So it's like I'm getting blonde jokes, and people are calling me like I'm either fat or I'm stupid because I'm cute. I'm just like, does this work? Do y'all think this works? That this has like an impact? Like that I'm not completely content in my advanced degrees and education and the way that I look? It's like,
yeah, like people think these super dumb insults that are just repeated over and over again actually have an effect on people. And
yeah, I know.
Maybe a small portion of people it will affect them, but I don't think most people are affected by random Twitter people making these stupid insults.
And they were like, there's a specific attack line that was disseminated across the bot farm. Something to do with sandwiches, like, oh, you look like you could make a mean sandwich, you could eat a mean sandwich, because I got it like 50 times by all these different accounts in like 2 days. I was like, first of all, I make a mean everything. I love to cook. I grew up like in the South Mississippi, Louisiana area. Cooking is like one of my favorite things to do. Second, I'm a real porker, and I shared a like head to toe picture, and I was like, you think you're hurting me? I was like, even if I did get fat, It's my fucking right to get fat, and I would enjoy being fat because I enjoy food.
Exactly.
It's like, what are you? It's like basically attacking me for being a very extreme Christian. It was like, I'm an atheist. Like, I feel like this is them missing the mark.
Yeah, crazy people. But one final question before we let you go. If DeSantis and Trump were to both be in the race, Trump already is, DeSantis is likely going to be in it. Who do you think has the best chance? And do you think that if DeSantis got the nomination, would Trump run as an independent and screw the Republicans over?
So this is a bit complicated. I think there's a lot going on inside the party behind the scenes that none of us are privy to. And I don't have any connections directly to find out more, but there definitely is a battle line being drawn. So Pushaw, who is obviously a proxy of DeSantis, has her troll army blaming Donald Trump for the 2022 losses across the country, for their failure to gain the Senate, for their failure to secure a wider margin of House seats, despite all the gerrymandering they did, especially in Florida. And that has not gone unnoticed by the Trump camp. They are aware. This is so bizarre. My life has become such a weird thing. I cried when he got elected, and I remember trying to scrub the Hillary or pull off the Hillary Clinton sticker off the back of my car in 2016, just like crying in my driveway. And now I have sources in Donald Trump's camp. But I've already said, as someone who's already literally had a gun to their head because of one of these men, should I ever find myself in that position again, between the two of them, go MAGA. I mean, yeah. I don't have any like hesitation about that whatsoever.
Really? Well,
no, none, zero. I was kind of the first sign that something was very fucking off with Ron DeSantis. You don't order an armed raid of a scientist's house in which they're ordered to point guns at children and threaten a woman's family because she made you look bad in the press. I mean, not that Trump didn't fire people like Vindman and be vindictive and resentful, but this is a whole other level. But my sources in the Trump camp say that they know, they're aware. Roger Stone has really been trying to convince Trump of the threat that DeSantis is, but Trump seems to, because of ego, think that he's untouchable. But his staff is working on dealing with DeSantis. Now, there's a lot of rumors that Roger Stone puts out there, and I don't know how much stake you can put into anything that Roger Stone says, but supposedly there's a video of DeSantis with a Newsmax or OAN reporter, I can't remember which one, during that period where DeSantis went MIA, when COVID was like at its absolute worst at that point, and his wife was supposedly getting chemo treatment. And he was also, according to Pushaw, said he was vacationing with his kids. Redfern, who's another press secretary, said that he was by his wife's bedside getting chemo, which seems to be weird to be doing the two things at the same time. And Roger Stone was like, oh no, we know where he was. He was with, and he named the reporter, and it's like, we have video. And I was like, please have the video, give it to me, I'll leak it, you don't have to worry about it, I'll do that. So yeah, that is a war that's been kind of simmering under the surface and is almost at a full boil. As soon as Trump probably sees some early polling numbers when the primary really starts, I would expect him to take the gloves off of DeSantis. But I think the longer that Trump goes without dealing with DeSantis, the more dangerous DeSantis is. My hope is that we'll have a Romney type candidate who I'm not a fan of. I mean, he's like trickle down economics, rich people are gods, we know everything, and what's
but not
best
crazy, right?
Yeah, but not this radical cultish far right stuff. And to be clear, Trump's not like as far right as DeSantis. He's pro-vaccine. He tells everybody to get the shot. He was very proud of that. He hasn't gone out of his way to attack gay individuals, although he was very much anti-trans. But he had no problem flying a pride flag in New York City. Yeah. And I mean, DeSantis is much more extreme on social issues than
I don't think Trump actually has a care about anything politically. I think it's just all about himself and what gives him power and money. I think that's Trump's own.
I'm gonna get railed so hard by the liberals for this. Trump has moments of redeeming qualities. Like I've read obviously Woodward's book and everything else. Like when he found out about what was happening to children in one of the Chinese provinces that he immediately suspended all trade with, he was visibly, movably upset. Like it bothered him to see pictures of children that way. I don't think DeSantis has that capacity. He was a JAG lawyer in the military, sent to represent prisoners' rights in Guantanamo Bay, and volunteered to participate in their torture and enjoyed it way more than any guards who were actually there to torture people. He volunteered to do it to these people he was supposed to be representing and protecting, and enjoyed it. I mean, they are two different types of people. One, Trump, just a flagrant, egotistical narcissist who he'll hurt people he feels are hurting him, but otherwise does not seem to care. And then there's DeSantis, who is very much ingratiated in the far right hate of all things that are not, what he is, and has shown a repeated and ruthless and cruel ways of implementing what he wants under threat of violence a lot of the time. So yeah, like I said, gun to head, and I can say that as someone who's had one, yeah, go MAGA, because Trump was ineffective.
I personally don't see a Mitt Romney type candidate emerging, because he's just going to be labeled, or he or she will be labeled a rhino immediately. And, I just don't see that.
On the national stage, this kind of hate hasn't been out there ever, not really to a substantial form. I mean, like I said, Donald Trump wasn't like anti-gay. He wasn't calling people fucking groomers. He wasn't talking about arresting teachers because they have, the Diary of Anne Frank in their fucking school library. This is something else. And that has not been on the natural stage with such a big and influential Republican person. And there are a lot of Republicans, and we saw this with the Biden Biden in 2020, who want that Romney person back. They're sitting back, they're going, I did not sign up to imprison teachers for having books in a school library. Like, shit has to stop. I'm not anti-gay. They might be anti-trans, because I have a whole discussion about my podcast tomorrow about that. But they don't hate people that way. And Trump flirted with the racism, obviously, with people from Central America, South America, and even Islam. DeSantis is everything, especially Black people. And on a national stage, if you have someone who's calm, collected, not like Jeb, who was arrogant as shit, somebody other than that, who's like, look, we're fiscal conservatives. You don't have to be a part of that shit to be a Republican. And I'm here because we need to get back to these values. And that's what defines our party. That candidate will be embraced by the McConnells, by the McCarthys, the establishment Republican that doesn't want to deal with another Trump or something worse.
Exactly.
Yeah, I just don't know who it is.
Yeah. So before we let you go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, yeah, that's the problem. I feel like everybody in Congress, everybody in the Senate, most of the people in the Senate are already too far in that direction, where I feel like somebody has to emerge from somewhere else.
I think you might be right. And people can always rebrand. I mean, Marjorie Taylor Greene is apparently trying to rebrand herself as mature.
Yeah.
Which means that the previous thing was an intentional brand. And I'm like, oh, good God, what is that? But the Republicans' best chance to win next time is to find that moderate. And
absolutely right.
There's no telling that, somebody like, I don't think Larry Hogan, the former governor of Maryland, who's exactly the type politically person that I'm talking about, has the kind of widespread appeal or name recognition that he needs. But someone like that, who's maybe younger and more charismatic, would be great. I just don't know who that person is. I wouldn't be surprised if they go with like Nikki Haley, because she's been trying to rebrand herself as a more responsible Republican alternative ever since leaving the Trump administration.
Yeah, and I think Pompeo's kind of trying to do that too, but he has no shot. Like, he's just...
No, he doesn't. No, he dug himself in too much. But yeah, I think that there are certainly Republicans who look at DeSantis and think this is the worst possible thing for us to ever happen, and want to be president and can be as ruthless as all these other people. They just don't have to do it in the way that they are doing it now.
Yeah, I think DeSantis works in Florida, but I don't think he works on a national scale. And I think he'll find that out if he did get a nomination. But yeah, I guess we'll see. But
Yeah, I know,
you have
right?
a podcast,
Democracy
right?
in the balance, and we just get to
Exactly.
wait and see.
So tell us briefly about your podcast and
Oh, yeah.
anything else you're doing.
Yes. So I run a podcast. It's called Misinformational, MISS. And we kind of break down how disinformation and misinformation spreads online, really in kind of the new media environment, but also in traditional media outlets. We cover the misinformation stories of the week. Every week, George Santos has made a couple of appearances in there. And so we kind of break down the culprits, where it's originating for, who were the people spreading it, just all of the ways that things that are not true have infiltrated American discourse. And we were kind of inspired by this effort. I think it's in Estonia. They have a like nightly show on their basic cable, like your Fox News, that goes through and breaks down all the Russian disinformation that's been spread in their country that week. And so that was kind of what inspired us to put this together. I co-host it with Dr. Cindy Banyai, who ran for Congress against Byron
In our district. She ran in our district.
Yeah, so she's great. Together and along with a veteran campaign manager, Nikki Freeds, we founded a PAC that's called Saving America 2024. If it sounds familiar, that's because Donald Trump's whole thing now is Save America 2024, but he didn't copyright or claim any of the naming rights for it. So I did. We are a federal affiliated PAC, so we're not working for any one candidate. But we are working we're doing basically what Cambridge Analytica did with data analytics to target campaigns in 2024 that we can be most effective in pulling away Republican support from. And so misinformational.com, savingamerica2024.org. I'm resuming my PhD this summer.
Congratulations.
Got 2.5 years through it and then took the job at DOH, and then everyone knows what happened after that. And so I'm a climatologist by education and training to this point, but I'm switching gears into political science and communication because I have seen the inside of that disinformation machine, and I think it's one of the biggest threats to the future of democracy. So that's what's on my plate.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for joining us, and I'm sure we'll have you on again. Maybe when you get some more information, we can have you on and talk about what you find.
And we do a Twitter Spaces if Twitter ever gets their Spaces working again.
It never works. Oh
Yes.
God. Yeah, I do have to sit down and write a tech piece about that whole debacle.
Maybe Elon should hire you to, handle some of that data. There's a lot of data there.
Oh, the last thing he wants to do is give me console access, because whatever secrets Twitter's really hiding would be out.
Twitter Files Part 2.
The real Twitter files.
Twitter files. The liberal Twitter
files.
Yes.
All right. Well, thanks again, Rebekah. It was a pleasure, and talk to you soon.
Thank you, guys.